Beanie Wells, man. Whew, that guy could run. Jay, how we doing on time?
You guys are perfect. We are going to break right now.
Thanks, Dad.
And if you haven't had enough of our banter tonight, you want to visit NFL Addictions on Facebook.com for all of your NFL banter and chatter. It's not a trash talk site, so keep it clean and keep it cordial. That's NFL Addictions on Facebook.com. And if you still got an itch to scratch when you're done with that, you want to visit Raz Addictions on Facebook.com for their version of the raffle for all kinds of cool prizes, even a chance at winning some cash. You buy a $10 raffle ticket for a chance at winning $100. That's a chance at making 10 times your money. It don't get any better than that. That's Raz Addictions on Facebook.com for a chance at all kinds of cool prizes. Tell them what you've won, Dave.
I've won everything from tailgating barbecue sets. That I have a Packers one that I won, folks, for $400. I put $40 down on the spot. I won it, and it was out of 20 spots. It's really worth it. I've also won helmets that are signed. I've won banners that are signed. I've won memorabilia rings. I've won footballs that are signed and other Packers knickknacks because that's my team. But go ahead and check them out. Cheap, affordable prices for certified, authentic stuff.
That's Raz Addictions on Facebook.com. Go there, play, and win. And as always, you can follow us on Twitter at First and Goal Pod, myself at UPJ33, Dave is at Steak and Cheese, and the fantasy wonder himself, Dillon, at Dillon Busby1. Email us at firstandgoalpodcast@yahoo.com with all your football and Packer questions and comments, and you just might find yourself making the show live. That's firstandgoalpodcast@yahoo.com. All right, we are back. What do you got now, Dillon?
All right, guys, we went over who you should trade away. Now we're going to move into who you should trade for. Again, this is based on how low you can buy them, the rest of the season schedule, and the fact that I think they can get it done in your fantasy playoff push due to their schedule. Going to start off with two names, the first of which is pretty gross right now, but, wasn't always the case. This guy was a prominent wide receiver for the longest time, known for a famous catch, Mr. OBJ on the Cleveland Browns. Look, it's been ugly. It's been downright awful. But if you look at the Cleveland Browns' remaining schedule, it's pretty darn nice, pretty darn favorable. They play the Dolphins. They play the Bengals. I think that this connection with Baker Mayfield simply has to. I mean, there's no option other than it to work eventually. I mean, they brought this guy in, they traded for him, gave up so much for him, wanted to make him comfortable. Here, we have Jarvis Landry. We got Baker Mayfield. We're going to be the bee's knees, and Freddie Kitchens got this thing rolling, baby. So I just feel like for the rest of the season, you can trade for him at this point for God knows what. I mean, the guy who has OBJ is pulling his hair out right now thinking that he got this guy in the second round at a steal. He's like, oh, my God, he's probably bragging to all his buddies after the draft. Can't believe I got OBJ when I did. Yeah, well, guess what? You should have taken him undrafted, son. He's been that bad. I'd rather have DJ Chark. You heard of him? Probably not, but now you have. So OBJ is someone I believe you can trade for, throw a name out there and we can talk about it, but eventually
Tyrell
he
Williams?
might. Oh, yeah, in a heartbeat. I'd trade OBJ for Tyrell Williams.
Who's getting the better end of that deal?
The guy getting Tyrell, if you ask me. But I'm just saying, you just know at any point, Odell Beckham Jr. can take a 5-yard slant to the house and give you, 20 points in one play. So I'm just saying he's someone that's low value right now. You don't have to give up John Brown. I mean, the guy would probably look at his numbers. I don't think he would take it, but he would at least look at the game log. I can promise you that. So,
McCole Hardman.
I mean, no, I wouldn't trade him for Hardman. But
Hollywood Brown.
Have to think about it.
You can't stay healthy.
Have to think about it. Another guy on the same team I think you should be trading for right now is Nick Chubb. Because of the same thing, because of this awesome schedule they have coming up Nick Chubb is a guy you should be looking at. Up next, they have the Buffalo Bills, who just got tore up by Adrian Peterson. And then you have the Pittsburgh Steelers, a little bit more tough against the run.
Who would you rather have, DK Metcalf or Hollywood Brown?
I'd rather have Hollywood, especially with Josh Gordon in town now. And then for Nick Chubb, you take on the Miami Dolphins, and everyone knows what you can do to the Dolphins. A couple of games later, you got the Bengals. Your championship game is at home against the Ravens. Not ideal, but Nick Chubb is someone who's been fed the ball early and often, like we talked about earlier. And he's a guy, because the Browns are just so stinking bad right now, I think you can trade for at a pretty low value. Another guy you should be trading for is James White, Mr. Consistency in the New England backfield. I mean, I was worried when he wasn't getting the same catches we thought he would when Mohamed Sanu joined the team, because Mohamed Sanu does sort of the same type of thing. He catches those underneath passes. But they said, guess what, James? You're going to get a few more carries and get into the end zone. Save your fantasy day for everyone. James has a very favorable schedule coming up. In a couple of weeks, they play the Eagles, who are great against the run, but I guarantee James is going to have great matchups against some linebackers out wide. Then they play the Cowboys, the Texans, the Chiefs. What am I saying? These are all going to be high-scoring affairs, games where you cannot hand the ball off to Sony Michel, games where you have to pass the ball. And who's on the field when the Patriots pass the ball? It's James White. So he's someone I think you should be trading for, someone who's probably most people are flexing. Maybe he's on the bench. You could pry him away for this and that, a little bit of a combination junk package deal, and get James White on your team. He's going to be very important for a fantasy playoff push. I guarantee he's going to be on plenty of championship teams at the end of the year. Another player you should be trading for, wide receiver Keenan Allen. That's right. The Chargers still can get it done. They beat your Packers this week. And up next, they have the Oakland Raiders, second worst in fantasy against the wide receivers. The Oakland Raiders give up points like it's going out of style to wide receivers. Keenan Allen is still Phillip Rivers' boy. Even though Hunter Henry is in the picture, Mike Williams, it still comes back to Keenan Allen. Yes, he had a dud game, and that's why I believe you can trade for him pretty low, is because, he's been up and down. Hasn't really come through in the touchdown category this year, but he never has. I mean, he's had a few freak years. Those were the exception years. But he's always been consistent when it comes to catches and yardage. Keenan Allen is someone you should be trading for right now. He's got the Raiders up next, and guess what his championship game is? At home against the very same Oakland Raiders. So, Keenan Allen, thanks to a low game this past week, is someone I think at the trade deadline that you should be able to get on your fantasy roster.
That works.
So I'll go over it again real quick. Names you should be trading for at the trade deadline, folks. This is very important. I mean, I know my voice is monotone. I can be hard to follow, and I apologize for that. But this is very important at the trade deadline for your fantasy season. I mean, if you want to sit there at 4 and whatever, 3 and whatever, and think it's all over, that's just fine. Or if you want to make some moves, win out, and back your way into your fantasy playoffs and make the rest of your buddies cry. Oh, I can't believe you got in and I didn't. Yeah, well, guess what? You just sat on your hands and did nothing while I made moves, buddy, after listening to at Dillon Busby 1, at First and Goal Pod, and I got it done. OBJ, Nick Chubb, James White, and Keenan Allen, all guys you should be trading for right now.
Very nice. Why so quiet? God.
I thought he was looking at his arms again.
How do you feel about Kalen Ballage as a sleeper?
Ooh, I am very glad you brought him up. And it's so funny you brought him up, man. You bring him up every week, and I'm like, bah, nah, bah.
Sound like Goat Boy from SNL.
Exactly. Every single time, I completely disregard it. And now guess who is more fantasy relevant than ever? Kalen Ballage himself. After Mark Welton gets suspended for 4 games, thanks to PEDs, in comes Mr. Bellagio, Kalen Ballage. It's unreal. I mean, I thought earlier I need to bring him up on the fantasy podcast because Dave brings him up every week and I never do. Here we are sitting at however long into the podcast. It's exactly what happened. You brought him up and I forgot about him. Wow. Thank you, sir.
What would you do without me?
Yes, a very good waiver wire pickup. Jay, if you'd like to, we can go into waiver wire pickups for this week.
Yes, do that.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do that.
So, folks, talk about making that playoff push. There are some actually pretty juicy names on the waiver wire this week, guys, you need to add in order to improve your roster. First, we are going to start with Mr. Zach Pascal. Comes in for an injured T.Y. Hilton. We're not exactly sure how the shuffle is going to work between him, Paris Campbell, Deion Kane. You've got the 2 tight ends. Well, guess what? Zach Pascal comes in, and even with Brian Hoyer entering the game at one point, Zach Pascal goes 5 for 76 and a tutty against those. That's right, I said it. Against the old Pittsburgh Steelers, getting it done. And then also you have Ronald Jones, a name that never gets brought up on this show, and for good reason. Ronald Jones goes 82 yards and a touchdown this past week against the Seattle Seahawks, a guy I'm sure is on most waiver wires available. Go pick him up if you're hurting at running back and need someone to plug in there. Up next is a guy who I really feel bad bringing him up because I brought him up for the past several weeks now, but it's Mr. Devontae Parker out of Miami. And now you've got Preston Williams banged up on the other side. I believe he's going to miss the rest of the season.
Goo.
Devontae Parker is absolutely relevant down there in Miami. Him and Ryan Fitzpatrick absolutely have a connection. Devontae Parker scored his 4th touchdown of the season this past week against the New York Jets, and he only has 2 games this season with less than 50 yards. So there's a stat you probably did not know.
I've got a Miami wide receiver you didn't mention, but since you mentioned Parker, what
Prince
about
Albert?
Jakeem Grant?
Yeah, I mean, a name that you should stash but not play.
What
See
about
how it
Alan
goes.
Hearns?
No, thanks. We don't need to get it in the abyss. I mean, once I can't see in the water anymore, I'm out.
Well, in one of my leagues, I've got not ours, but I've got a spot open because of the big wide receivers I've got on bye. I was looking at either Alex Erickson or Chester Rogers.
What kind of league are you in? Chester Rogers is the answer on that one for me.
Are you sure? Alex Erickson has gone off, man, the past couple weeks. Week 6, he had 10, 7, 21, 8, 15.
Who threw those passes?
Andy Dalton.
That is correct.
But Ryan Finley's better than Andy Dalton.
Well, we're going to find out.
I know you're a Red Rifle supporter, man. I have to ask.
No, I mean, it's a good question. But, I mean, Rodgers and Hoyer obviously have a connection from them hooking up in the practice squad and the whole fucking preseason, so.
Why are you so grumpy today?
I just did like a lean over, and for some reason the lean made me, it was like a grouchy lean, but I'm good.
It's called the J-lean.
That works.
Jolene.
Another guy on the waiver wire who is going into bye.
What is he doing? Is he doing Pilates on the show?
Oh, God. He's Rob Van Dam over there. This player is going to a bye, but we've been waiting for him to break out all season long. That is rookie tight end Noah Fant. 3 catches.
I heard you guys saying you're doing the J lean. I was doing lean back, lean back, lean back. That's all I was doing.
Oh, Fat J. I like it.
It's Fat Joe.
I know. Anyhow, Noah Fant finally breaking out. A guy who going into his bye week is probably someone being overlooked by the rest of your league because of that. So
does Brandon Allen have the same success though?
I mean, it's a good sign. It's not like we don't have a sample size now.
It's not like it was a tough team. Who does Denver play next week?
Say what you will about Cleveland's offense, sir, but that defense is formidable.
So formidable. Noah Fant shoulder truck someone, stiff arm someone into the abyss, and then broke through 2 tackles.
If you're a first round tight end, there's a reason why.
Like it looked like he was Kellen Winslow in the '80s game of the Chargers. Old Fauci throwing it down the field for him,
just bouncing it right off him.
It did. It